Hello and welcome to the instructional video for the MarinMap FireViewer application. When first entering the FireViewer application, you will be greeted with this help menu here at the center of the screen. This is a help or welcome window which will give you application information and instructions on how to interact with the application and tools within the application. You can exit out of this help menu by selecting the X button here at the top right of the menu that says Exit Help Menu. If at any time you need to access that help information again, you can go to the top right-hand side of the application and select this Access Help Menu button at the very top right here. And that will bring you into your help information again. It's going to look a little bit different than that welcome window, but the text inside of the help menu is the same information. I can also exit that by selecting this X button at the top right-hand side of that help menu. I'm going to go through some of the basic tools that are available within the mapping portion of this application. Then I will work my way to going through the search functionality available in the application. After the search, I'll work my way from left to right and go through all of these tools up here in the header menu. To begin with those map-centric tools, I'll bring my cursor to the top left-hand side of the map within the application, and you'll see there are the zoom in and zoom out buttons. So I will select zoom in, and that will zoom me in on the map, and zoom out will zoom me out. Now, one thing to note is you can do both of these with your mouse wheel. You can utilize the scroll feature on your mouse wheel to zoom in and out, as well as the plus and minus keys on your keyboard to zoom the map in and out. Below the zoom in, zoom out buttons, we've got the default map view button. When selected, that button will bring us back out to that default map extent that the application loads on when it opens. This can be helpful if you're zoomed in on the map and looking at a specific area and different layers on the map, and you need to get back out to that home extent. You can just select that default map view button and it will zoom you back to that default view. Below the default map view button, we have a previous extent icon. When selected, that will bring you back to the extent that you were at prior to scrolling or moving the map. And that works with previous extents. You can continue back to kind of follow your breadcrumb trail as to where you were on the map. As well as the previous extent, we do have the next extent, which will basically reverse that breadcrumb trail and send you back to the extents you were at before you selected previous extent here. The next tool I'd like to go over is the search bar, which is at the top left-hand side of our map within the application here. We do have the ability to search on a tax parcel address or a property ID that are carried on the tax parcels layer as well. I've got a couple examples here of some searches. So I'll just enter in an address here. You can see I do not need to finish my address search. This is what's called a contains search. So if you type in any text and any of the addresses or parcel IDs that contain that text will show in your search results. So you can see I've typed in only 52 Union and it's returning 52 Union Street, which is the address that I'd like to go to. So I'll select that. And once selected in my menu here, it will zoom me to that location on the map. It will highlight that tax parcel. As you can see, we've got that blue outline with a little bit of a kind of a yellow coloring here for the selection. As well as selecting it, it's going to show me the pop-up information tied to that tax parcel. So we've got some generic information tied to that tax parcel in terms of parcel ID, address, owner, living units, and then some other pertinent information. Exit out of that pop-up, and I'll exit out of my search, and I'll go back out to that default map extent. And next I will show you how to run a search via the property ID of a tax parcel. This example is going to be the same tax parcel I just searched for via address, but I'm going to search for it via the property ID tied to that tax parcel. So I've entered in that property ID here. Just like I did with the address search, I'll select that result in the search results. Then the map will zoom directly to that location again, select that tax parcel, and show me that tax parcel pop-up information. Now, one thing to note with the pop-up that is selected here by default, I can view a pop-up information for any layer on the map. So if I just reselect that tax parcel, it's going to show me the pop-up information there. It would work the same for these point layers here on the map as well. I can select those, and that will give me information tied to those specific layers on the map. I'll go back into the tax parcels pop up here. One thing to note with these parcels is that they can be docked. So if you want to dock them on the side of your map and then keep the center of your map easier to view and click around and see what's available, you can dock those pop-ups. And sometimes when you dock these pop-ups, they can get in the way of the tools when they open. So to get those back to the center, you can just select that same undock button, and it will bring it back to that initial loaded centered view of the pop-up. I'll close out of that pop-up now, and we will go through the tools available to us within the header menu next. The first tool in the header menu I'd like to discuss is the Map Legend tool. So I'll select that from the icon here and open up that tool. Now the Map Legend is a very simplistic tool. What it's designed to do is show us symbology and kind of reference for any layer that is currently turned on in the application. So you can see we've just got 5 different layers that are turned on by default, and those will show up in the Map Legend. Now if I zoom in, some more layers will become visible, and you'll see here in the Map Legend that those will update and show in the Map Legend. So we can see all these other reference layers that are turned on at the extent that I'm currently viewing the map. So at any point, if you see something on the map and you don't want to click on it to view the pop-up tied to that layer, and you just want to see what that is, you can select the Map Legend tool here and view what that symbology might mean. The next tool in the header menu I'd like to discuss is the Map Layers tool. So I'll select this Map Layers icon to open that tool. Now the Map Layers tool is kind of the heart and soul of the application. It's where you can actually turn map layers on and off. So it's pretty simplistic in that fashion, but there are a few other aspects to this tool that I'd like to go through. So as mentioned, this is where you can turn layers on and off. One thing to note, however, is there are several group layers within the Map Layers tool here. Those group layers are related sublayers that are housed within a group. So any layer you see in the Map Layers tool that has this expand caret next to it is a group layer. And you'll see when I expand facility here, there are several sublayers within that facility group that can be turned on and off. Now, with some of these layers, such as the reference data group layer that I'm currently showing, there can be groups within those groups as well. So if you see that expand caret next to any layer here, it means that it is a group and there are sublayers within it. So we've got a few options when there are layers in a group. You can either turn layers on and off on their own in that list of sublayers, or you can turn the entire group off. Now you can see we've got some layers that disappeared from the map when I turned off this group layer here. So that will turn off sublayers within that group, even if those sublayers are turned on with their check mark. We do have some options within the map layers here as well. So we've got this options ellipsis menu next to group layers and sub layers. When you select the options menu on a group layer, you'll only have one option, which is transparency. And transparency is a pretty useful tool. You can control whether or not that group layer is transparent or see-through with this slider menu. So you can see as I get closer to 100% transparency, these purple dots and the helicopter pad layer is also getting a little bit more see-through when I get closer to 100%. And if I get all the way up to 100%, you can see those layers within this group are completely invisible. And when I get back down to 0, they'll show as they were by default. So that can be a really helpful tool when you're looking on the map and you've got a lot of different layers turned on, and you might need to make some a little bit more transparent than others so you can see some of the other layers a little bit better. That transparency can be a super helpful tool. Now I've scrolled down to the pool layer, which are these purple dots here on the map, and they are a sublayer within this fire appurtenance group layer. And when I select the options for a sublayer, we've got a few different options. We've got the ability to zoom to, which that will zoom to the entirety of that layer. Or you can control the transparency directly on that one single sublayer as well. So you can see we've got those purple dots here showing on the map. I'm controlling the transparency here with those, just that one singular layer within the group. And some of the sublayers are equipped with labels. And if they are equipped with labels, you'll see this hide labels option. So if there are labels turned on by default on a layer and you don't want to see them on the map, you can select that options button on the sublayer and hide labels. And then if you hide labels and they're not showing and you want to see them again, this button will change to show labels. So you can kind of hide them and show them as needed on those sublayers as well. Now, one other neat function of the map layers tool I'd like to show is the search capabilities. So if I just type in a keyword of fire, you'll see, again, this is a contains search similar to the search bar here at the top left. And so if I want to come into the map layers tool and search for a specific layer, and I know what that layer is called, I can type that into the search bar here, and it will filter out all of the map layers on the map that meet that search criterion. So since this is a contains search and I just typed in fire, it's going to return all sublayers that include the text of fire. But if I wanted to say search for just this fire station layer, I could continue my search to say station. And you can see that's filtered the entire map layers list to show me only my searched criteria. So there are several layers within this application, and if you know which one you're looking for to turn on or utilize the options on that layer, you can search for it and you can turn it on or off or utilize those options very quickly by just searching for it in the map layers tool. I will close out of the map layers tool. The next tool I'd like to discuss in the header menu is the queries tool. So I'll go ahead and select that queries icon here to open up the tool. And we've got 5 different options here in the queries tool. We can query out by the tax parcels layer, the city layer, the community layer, the fire station layer, and the fire service providers layer. So I'll walk through all of these queries and show you how they work. First, we'll go into that tax parcels query. And we've got the ability to query out the tax parcels layer by either the property ID or the street address. So very similar to the search bar, but instead of searching directly for it, we're just going to query that out of the data. And I'll show you what that query result looks like here with the example I've got. So I'll type in the property ID example that's listed here below the search, and I'll click apply. And similarly to the search criteria, that will highlight our result on the map, and then it will show us that pop-up information here in the returns of the query menu. And I can select that and it will flash it on the map. That selection of your query results can be helpful if you run a query that returns multiple results and you want to see which result is which. You can select it within the query results here and it will flash it on the screen for you and zoom you to that location as well. So I will clear my results. Again, this is a contains search. So if you need to search for a specific section of tax parcels, that you know the property ID meets this criteria you're going to search, and you don't want to fill out that entirety of the property ID to just query out the one tax parcel, you can run a contained search. So we'll return a query result of all tax parcels that contain this property ID. So we'll click apply. And here you can see we've got 14 results. So there's 14 tax parcels within that layer that meet that query criteria that I entered. And this is where it can be helpful to select those query results. It will zoom to your selection and flash it on the map for you. So I will clear my query results by selecting this trash can icon here, and that will clear my query results. I can do the same thing for querying by address, and that's just the street address that's tied to the tax parcels. That is also a contains search similarly to the property ID. So if you only know a portion of your street address and you need to find your tax parcel that way, you can enter in a partial search, click apply, and find your query results there. The next query I'll go through is the city query. And with this query, we're just querying out basically city boundaries. So if I want to query out and find the city of Belvedere, I'll select Belvedere here from the drop-down menu, click apply. That will zoom me to that boundary of Belvedere within the cities layer. I can also select that and it will show me kind of an updated highlight of that and show me some of that attribution tied to that polygon. Again, I can clear my results by selecting this trash can icon. And then when I select reset in my queries tool here, it will reset my query that I set. So if I wanted to run another city query, I could do that after resetting it. The next query I will go through is the community query. This is going to look basically exactly the same as the city query, but it's just querying out the community polygon layer. So if I wanted to go to, let's say, Alto, I could select Alto from that drop-down list, select apply, and it will zoom me to the community polygon of Alto, and then show me again some of that attribution tied to it and highlight it on the map for me. I'll clear those query results by selecting that trash can icon, and I will reset my query by selecting reset. The next query I will walk through is the fire station query. Again, this is just a drop-down menu that shows all fire stations by fire station name. So if I want to go to, let's say, Hicks Valley Marin County Fire, I'll select that from the drop-down list. I'll click apply. That will zoom me directly to that fire station point on the map. It'll highlight it on the map and then show me the attribution tied to that specific fire station point. Again, I can clear my results and then reset my query to reset that drop-down query criteria that I've set in the drop-down. Lastly, we've got the fire service providers query. Now, one thing to note with this query is that this fire service providers layer is not turned on by default. So the query will still work and it will show you the outline of that fire service provider polygon, but it's not going to actually select that layer. To ensure that it is a selectable layer, we have to make sure that that layer is turned on. So we'll use that search capability within the map layers tool that I talked about, and we'll search for fire service providers. And you can see that sublayer is actually turned on by default, but the group that it is within is not turned on. So we'll turn on that administrative districts layer. And now we'll go back to our fire service providers query, and we will select a fire service provider from the drop-down here. Let's go to the Bolinas Fire Protection District. We'll select that from the drop-down, then select apply in the query. That will zoom us directly to that fire service provider. Again, it will highlight it on the map. And now you can see the other fire service providers are turned on because we've turned that layer on. Now, if I were to run this fire service providers query with it turned off, you can see that query is still going to show me that outlined result, but that layer's not actually on currently. But you can still run that query. You can still see the attribution tied to that polygon through the queries tool, even if that layer is not turned on the map. And we will clear our results here and reset that query. Then I'll exit out of the queries tool here. The next tool I'd like to discuss on the header menu is the Bookmarks tool. So to enter that, I will select the bookmarks icon here. What the Bookmarks tool is a series of bookmarked locations on the map that were predetermined. So if you enter into the application, we'll go out to that default view. If you enter into the application and you want to view a specific area on the map, and there is a bookmark for it, you can just select that area. So let's say I want to zoom directly to Fairfax when I come into the application. I can come into Bookmarks, select Fairfax, and that bookmark will bring me right to the boundary of Fairfax that's been preset. Let's say I want to zoom over to Inverness next. I can select that from the bookmark menu here, and we can zoom there. So we've got several different predetermined bookmarks here that you can utilize to maneuver the map very quickly. And then one note is we do have this home bookmark at the very top, and that's the exact equivalent to the default map view. That will just bring us out to that home extent that the application loads on when you enter it. The next tool in the header menu I'd like to discuss is the Basemap tool. The Basemap tool is designed to control the underlying basemap that's shown on the map. So basically the reference basemap that's shown underneath all of the map layers that we're analyzing and looking at. This is just a way to help kind of show those in a way that might be more helpful. So we've got several options for base maps here, several aerial imagery options, and then a couple other fun ones that might just be an interesting representation of the data. For my example here, I'll just select this imagery hybrid. And you'll see once I've selected imagery hybrid in the base map menu, it's changed that background map to aerial imagery, which can be helpful for, if you want to see what is exactly on the ground and what it looks like from the bird's eye view, you can use that aerial imagery to help out with that. I will go back to the light gray canvas base map. That is our default base map that the application loads on. And all of this map symbology is designed to work really well with that. So I will use that base map for the rest of the video here. I can exit out of that base map menu by just selecting Close. The next tool I'd like to go through on the header menu is the Measurement tool. So I'll select that measurement icon to enter the tool. Once you've opened the measurement tool, you've got two options. You can measure a distance or measure an area. I'll walk through both of those, but I'll select measure distance first to just measure a straight line or set of distance measurements. So I'll select that icon to initiate the tool. You can see the tool here is telling you how to utilize it. It says start to measure by clicking in the map to place your first point. Now, one neat thing about the measurement tool, it is set up to use snapping. So you can snap your measurement to underlying layers shown on the map. And that's what that orange highlight is showing when I go to these lines and vertices of the tax parcels layer here. We'll say for my example, I want to measure the distance of the front portion of these two parcels of 161 and 165 Central Ave. So to begin my measurement, I'll run that hover and I will click first on that vertex on that corner of 161 Central Ave. And I'll just run my measurement here along that front of that parcel line. I found that second vertex at the corner where those two parcels meet. Then I'll just continue my measurement here to this third vertex. And to finish my line measurement, I will just double click. Once I've double clicked, you can see my measurement's been completed. And it's showing me my measurement here in feet. So if I can direct your attention to the tool here, The default measurement unit for a distance measurement is imperial, which means for any measurement you create that's under 1,000 feet, that measurement unit will default to feet. And then once you get over a measurement of 1,000 feet, it will default your measurement unit to miles. So one thing to be vigilant of here is that that default is imperial, and that's how that imperial measurement unit works. However, if you want to change your measurement unit away from feet or miles, depending on that imperial measurement length, you can choose from this list of drop downs for measurement units. So we'll say I want to see this measurement in meters. It's updated that measurement label here on the map immediately to meters, and it's also updated my distance measurement in the tool here to show me that that's 61.33 meters instead of the foot measurement. Now, if I was completed with my distance measurement here and I wanted to start a new one, I could select new measurement, and that will remove this old measurement but keep the tool open for me. Or I can select clear measurement, and that kind of exits me out of that measurement tool. Next, I'll walk through measuring an area. So to initiate the area measurement, I'll select that measure area icon up at the top left of the measurement tool. And again, it's going to prompt me to start my measurement by clicking in the map to place my first point. It's going to work very similarly to the distance measurement. So I'll just measure the area of these two tax parcels of 161 and 165 Central Ave. I'll select this first vertex here to begin my area measurement, and select the second, third, fourth, fifth, and my sixth here is going to complete my area measurement, so I'll double click to complete my area measurement. And you can see that's completed my area measurement. Again, our default area measurement unit is going to be imperial. And with area measurements, it's going to measure in square feet for any measurement that's below 1 million square feet. And then once you get above 1 million square feet on your area measurement, it will default to square miles. But again, you can utilize the drop-down menu here within the measurement tool to change your measurement unit. So let's say instead of square feet, I want to view the acreage of these two tax parcels. So I'll select acres. It's updated that measurement to acres on the map and in the tool here. One neat thing about the area measurement tool is that it will also give you a measurement of the perimeter of your area, and that's going to default to feet too until you get to a larger measurement area that will update to miles for your perimeter if it's a large enough area you're measuring. Then same as with the distance measurement, if I wanted to stay in the area measurement tool here and create a new area measurement, I could just select new measurement, or if I want to completely exit the tool, I can click clear measurement, and now you can see I don't have that option to start my area measurement again. I'll exit out of my measurement tool by selecting close. The next tool I'd like to go through within the header menu here is the print tool. So I'll select that printer icon print button here to enter the tool. The print tool is basically kind of a glorified way to get a screen capture of your current application view. You've got some default options here within the print menu when it opens up. So I've got a template drop down here, and what that template option is going to choose is my paper size and my layout of that paper size. So it's going to give me the options for paper size first and then the layout. So you can see A3 landscape, A3 portrait, that's the paper size, and then the layout behind it. And then we've got several other paper sizes and layout options. So once you've found the paper size you want, just select landscape if you want the kind of wide east to west view of your paper size, or portrait if you want that longer north to south layout of your paper size. Then you can control the title of your map printout. So I'll just type out print test for my title. And if you want to keep it super simplistic and print out just your basic view here with nothing else and that title and the template, you can just select print, and go on your merry way and print that out. Or you can expand this advanced menu below the title option, and you can control a little bit more about what your map printout is going to look like. So we've got the map printing extents. If you want to change that away from your current map extent, you can. I'll keep this at current map extent since that's what I want to show in my example here. We have the ability to add an author. So this is where you would put your name or whatever you wanted to show for that map author. I'll just type in test print author in here. And then we also have the option for a copyright text box. And this is where you could add any disclaimers or just general notes that you want to include on your printout. So I'll just type in test print copyright. And I'll show you where these author and copyright text will show on our map results. Next, we can include a legend, so that will show what the current symbology and layers that are visible in our map printout are in that legend. We can include a north arrow, so the person viewing the map knows which direction is north. Then we'll leave that scale bar unit at miles, but if you're zoomed in really closely and you want to change that to feet or meters, or do that option. We'll leave that print quality at the default of 96 dpi. If you wanted to up that, it would just improve the print quality of your printout. And then we'll keep the include attributes checked here. That's just going to give us some basic like timestamp information on when this print was printed. So once we've got that all selected and entered here in our advanced printing options, I'll select print. And once you select print, you'll see there is a results tab here in the print tool. So we'll select in there, and this is where it's going to show my print results. I've got a spinning wheel right now, which means that printout is not done yet. So we'll wait for that to stop spinning, and it will turn into kind of like a little paper icon once it's completed, and then you can click on it and view it. So it looks like my print test has completed here. We can see that little paper icon there. So I will select it. And once you've selected your print result, it will open in a new tab on your browser. Here in the printout, we can see our title. We've got all of the layers showing here in the map legend that we selected to turn on. So we can see what all of these layers are within the map. We've got that scale bar that we turned on. It's still in miles like we kept it at. We've got the north arrow. And then here's where that author and copyright information show up, is the very bottom right-hand side of the printout. So the author will show on top and the copyright information we entered will show on the bottom. And again, if you just want to include some notes in that copyright information, this is where you could include it, and that would show up at the very bottom right-hand side of your printout. Now, since this opened in a new browser tab, what we have for options to save is just to right-click your image, and you can choose Save Image As. And you can save it out to a TIFF or a JPEG or a PDF or whatever you might need to save it in terms of file type. Or you can copy the image and paste it directly into a message or an email or something like that. So fairly simplistic, but pretty powerful tool here to just grab a screenshot with some information that will help guide someone that you're looking to share your map extent with. I'll exit out of that and go back into the application. And we can exit the print tool by just selecting the X close button at the top of that menu. The next tool in the header menu I'd like to go through is the share tool. So I'll select that share icon to open that up. Now the first thing you'll see when you enter into the share tool is the short link URL. So if you want to share this application out and you don't want to utilize the entirety of that URL that shows up here in your browser, you can just select copy on that short link URL and that will copy that link to your machine's clipboard, and you can paste it into a message or an email or anything like that that you want to share this application with. Then we've got these share tools here at the bottom of the share tool. You can select embed, and what that's going to do is give us an embed code, which is in HTML. So if you want to embed this application into another application or a web page or something like that, you can utilize this embed code HTML to do so. We've got the ability to copy again to our machine's clipboard, and then you can paste that into wherever you need to paste to. And then you can control some embed size options here as well. Next, we've got the QR code share ability. So I'll select that, and you can save this QR code as an image. So let's say you've got people that utilize this application only on mobile devices, and you need a quick way to share it with them. You can save out this QR code and share it with them. They can scan it with their mobile device and enter this application without having to know what the URL is for it. Next, we've got the share via email option. I won't click it because then it would take a little bit of time and open up my default email provider on my machine. But what this email share button does is it opens up a blank email with a link to this application in the email's body, and that will open up in your default email provider on your machine, and then you can enter in who you'd like to send that email to, and you can send it out. So pretty quick way to initiate an email sharing of this application. And then these last four buttons are all social media buttons. You can share the application directly through Facebook, X, Pinterest, or LinkedIn. And you will have to sign in to any of those accounts if you have the accounts to share the application via those social media offerings. Next, I would like to go through the data table tool. And to access that, I will select this table icon here in the View Data Table button. The first thing we'll go through in the table here is you can access layers. So you can access any single map layer that's shown on this application in tabular format by selecting it from this drop-down menu. So for my example's sake, I will go down to tax parcels, and we'll view the tax parcels layer. And you can see we're showing all tax parcels that are shown in the application, so just over 96,000. One neat thing with the table view is that you can sort columns ascending or descending. So if I wanted to search the property IDs ascending or descending, I can do that, and then I can go back to that default view by just selecting that column header again, and that will give us to our default view. Another neat thing about the table view here is that you can select table records, and it will zoom you to whatever has been selected on the layer on the map behind the table tool here. So I'll select this tax parcel, and that has zoomed me directly to that tax parcel selection on the map behind our table tool. So I'll exit the table. You can see our selection is showing on the map here, and that tax parcels pop-up is initiated because I've got it selected within the table here. Another neat thing about the table is that you can make a multiple selection in here, and you can do that just by selecting these rows. So I've got a multi-select on 5 tax parcels here, and you can make a selection, and then that map behind us will zoom to all of those selected tax parcels. So it's changed that view of the map behind us. And then to deselect those selections, you can just reselect those rows on the table here. Once you have a selection made within your table, you do have a tool here that is called Show Selection that will enable. And when I select that, basically it will remove all other views of your table records other than your selection. So if you want to just view the selection you've made, that's how you can do it. And you can go back to that initial view of Show All by selecting that same Show All button. And now you can see we're viewing all the other table records as well as our selection. Next to that, you can also clear your selection. So if you've run your analysis and you made your selection and you're done with that, you can select the Clear Selection button here on the top of the table to remove your selection. So you can see it's removed my selection from the table, and it's also zoomed the map back out to that default map view instead of the zoom directly to my selection that I had here in the table. The next tool within the table tool is the Show and Hide Columns tool. So I'll select that. And within this tool, you can select which columns in your table are visible. So if you want to view a layer and only view specific fields tied to that layer or columns tied to that layer, you can control which ones are turned on. So for this example, let's say I want to view just property ID and use code of my tax parcels here. I can clear my entire selection, and then I can select which columns I want to see on my table. So I've selected property ID and use code, and now you can see on the table, those are the only two columns I'm seeing. If I wanted to add some more, I can just select those here within the menu, and those will show up on my table now. You can also show just your selection for whatever reason. If you just want to see those selected columns in your tool here, you can do that, or you can go back here and view all the rest of them as well. Lastly, in the table tool, we've got this Actions subtool. And within the Actions subtool, we've got a few options here. The first one I'll go through is Set Filter. So if you want to set a filter on your data that you're viewing in your table, this is where you can do so. We will add what's called a clause, and that clause will connect to the data columns and fields, and then you can run a filter based off of the attribution tied to those fields or columns. Let's say we want to filter by mailing city, and you can leave this as is, or you can change that expression to be is blank, is none of, all sorts of different options within that clause menu. And then we'll go down to my select source type of unique. This will get me a drop-down menu of all of our different options from the data within that mailing city field or column. And for my example here, we'll just choose Agora Hills. And so once I've set my column, I can enable that filter by just selecting this toggle switch here. And that's going to filter out that table I'm viewing based on my clause here. So it looks like the only tax parcel in the entire county with a mailing city of Agora Hills is filtered out here. You can also continue to add clauses. So you can add another single clause or a clause set, and the clause set will be multiple clauses in one, and you can go through your different fields and filter out the tax parcels or whatever layer you're looking at in tabular format by those clauses. One neat thing with the set filter is you can leave your filter in here set, so you don't have to redo it if you're going to use it again, and you can just toggle that filter off. So you can see I toggled that filter off. It's unfiltered my whole table here, but it's still showing my clause that I set, and I can just turn that back on by toggling here. So we'll turn that off for this example, and we'll exit out of the set filter menu. Finally, within the Actions subtool, we've got the ability to export. So most commonly, people utilize this export to CSV or spreadsheet format. So if you want to view any of these map layers on this application in spreadsheet format, you can do that by exporting from the table here when you've got your layer selected. One thing to note with the export is that if you do have a filter set on your data, that filter is going to come out in your export. So very powerful there, but it's also something to be careful with. If you want to export the entirety of your layer, just make sure you do not have any filters set on your data prior to exporting it. I will exit the download table by selecting that X button at the top right of the table. Lastly, we do have the ability to open that help menu. And to do that, we can just select this Access Help menu button at the top right-hand side of the application. This will get us to that help text, which is just got application information and some instructions on how to interact with the application. At the bottom of that help menu, we do have the ability to go back into the data download table. So if I select that, it will bring me into the data download table again. And to access that help menu again, I would just select that button at the very top right-hand side. With that, that's all I had for the instructional video today on the MarinMap FireViewer application. I hope that you found this video worthwhile and that you enjoy utilizing this application. Thank you very much for your time.